Hola, buenos dias. Today we are going to stay with Panama. We've been doing a couple of Panamanians of late. Let's just go with another one. I'm going to be talking about a rum called the Panama Red, which is directly and solely due to a friend of mine in Saskatchewan called Dwayne Stewart, who is a regular contributor on Matters Rum and Cocktails to the Canadian Rum Club, but is also a personal friend of mine. At least I've always thought of him as such. A kind of a snarky interlocutor. But he's been talking to me about the usefulness and the quality of the Panama Red for many years now, ever since I reviewed it back in about 2013, 2014. And I thought it was time to kind of like give it a run through a second time or a third time just to see whether the Stewart Affordability Conjecture hangs through here, which is it worth the money given the fact that there's there's a couple of things in there that just seem a little bit dodgy. So to get to the point exactly, this is the Panama Red. It's an overproof, or that's what they call it. It's not really. It's 54% ABV, so 108 proof in the American system. And it is made from Panamanian rum stocks. It comes from Las Cabras, but we don't really know very much about the pre-distillation stuff like the wash and the fermentation and what they use to supercharge it or whatever. But it does come from Las Cabras. It is coming from molasses, and it is therefore column stilled. And here's the interesting part. It actually has, it's a blend of rums from Panama, obviously from Las Cabras, up to 5 years old. That means that it conforms to the blends that we tend to see around the place rather than being a single barrel, such as the sort of thing we want to have more often. Now, this is important because we tend to see quality rums as being single cask, barrel proof, the whole limited edition, yada, yada, yada stuff. But here, that's not the case. This is just a blend like everything else, although it does seem to be of a somewhat limited edition. Like, for example, I don't think this is being made anymore. But for the time when it came out, blends ruled the roost. We hadn't yet seen the explosion of the independent bottlers, aside from the whiskey makers back in 2013, 2014. The whole business about the sugar and dosage hadn't really become a thing yet. We were starting to see it, but it really wasn't as huge a deal as it is now. It is a bit of a boutique rum in the sense that the same group, the Panamonte Spirits that did the Panamonte 25 that we talked about, also did this, and the CEO, Jim Wasson, was the guy who gave me most of the production details. So the real question is it worth it? And I think for the price I paid at the time, I believe it was about $50, $60, it really was, because we weren't seeing blends from Panama at all at that time that were particularly expensive. For the most part, they were in the $40 to $60 range, depending on whether it was Abuelo or any of the others that we are more familiar with. And more importantly, they tended to stick at 40%, standard strength, living room strength, as my friend Henrik used to say. So to see something at 54%, which, while it isn't quite overproof, depending on how you look at overproof, it's either 54.5 or 57, but it's not over that. Therefore, to call it an overproof is something of a misnomer. Doesn't matter. We didn't see shit like this very often, and because of that, this is really worth a look, because of course that means the tastes are much more extensive and much more intense, as they tend to be with something this strong, right? Now, I'm going to go on the basis of a second and a third tasting I did this last weekend, and most of the point is that this thing has got a very solid, perfumed, tight nose. And what that means is that you get a lot of different things all at the same time. You get some tannins, you get some damp tobacco infused with port wine, you get some tart fruit, you get some burnt caramel, there's some coconut, there is spices here, cinnamon, nutmeg, breakfast spices, that kind of thing. It really is a very nice nose. And it's solid, right? 54%. You're going to get quite a bit of oomph out of there. The palate is also very similar. It is really nice. It's quite smooth. This is the thing. It is quite smooth in the sense that it doesn't burn its ass down your way and try to rip out your gullet all in one shot. It really tries to be nice to you and give you a really good sipping experience, which makes it a very good buy as far as I'm concerned, assuming you can still find it anywhere in some dusty old shop somewhere in Canada. I doubt whether it's anywhere else except perhaps in Florida or Panama itself. I really don't know. One last thing, though, before I tell you the final thing about it, is that I could never get rid of my feeling that it had been dosed just a little. For a 5-year-old rum, or a blend of rums up to and including 5 years old, you just don't get this kind of profile. It just seems a little bit much. Jim Wasson never really admitted to me one way or the other. Nobody's ever kind of talked about it except me. but it does test at 52.75% alcohol when I run it through this little guy, right? So that isn't really enough to disqualify it. It's 54.75% or something like that. Sorry, it's 5 to 8 grams per liter, depending on how you look at it, which makes it a decent rum. It's nice, it's tasty, it's great. As long as you kind of like okay with a little bit of, you know, something in there, and I don't know what that is, you're not gonna have a bad time with it. And I think my friend Dwayne is going to be very happy that I've still continued giving it a good speak over. And I called it 81.5% back in the day, but forget this half point. It's about 82, 83 points. It's great. It's good. It's good for what it is, and you can't ask for much more if you want to pay that kind of price. I wish it was still available, quite frankly, but because it is nice. But right now it isn't, and we just have to live with it as it is. So there you have it. Thanks. Bye.